blessing together. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher tzivanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Praise to you, Lord our God, rule of the universe, who has made us holy with your commandment, ourselves with the words of Torah. All right. So there we go. I will recap our introduction in the hopes that it'll be relevant by the end of today's class. How to be a biblical Bubbie, grandmother. Your grandkids lose their father, the king, in an ambush. And being a Jewish grandmother, what do you do with your grandkids? A, feed them. B, cry with them. C, give them lots of snuggles and hugs. D, have them stay with you for a week. Or E, slaughter them all, seize the throne, introduce idol worship, and oppress the nation.
Oh, that's not nice.
Is there an F, all of them?
Sadly, no. I suppose you could have an F, A through D. That would be E, and then make E F. But I don't know anybody contemporary or in the past who would do A through E together.
Well, you could do A through D and then say, all right, that's over with. I'm going to do E.
You could.
How do you repeat A through D?
You would what?
Yeah.
But how do you repeat A through D after you use E?
That's a challenge. A challenge indeed. All right, so last time we talked about Mrs. Potiphar. And just to recap, in the Torah readings that we've been doing as of late, Joseph, who's one of Jacob's 12 sons, is sold into slavery by his brothers because they're jealous of him. And he gets bought by Potiphar, who is some sort of Egyptian official. And Joseph is doing well. What?
I think he's a priest. A priest. I think he's a priest.
Potiphar is an Egyptian official. Potiphera, 2 words, is a priest. Potiphar
both the same. Okay.
And Potiphera, many people say, that's awfully similar. That must be the same person.
I think that's my comment.
They might not be the same person.
Okay, I yield.
I'll come back to I'll try to remember to come back to Potiphera before we move on tonight. So Potiphar sees that Joseph is very capable. He gives Joseph the command of everything in his house, except for his food. And so in scene 2, Mrs. Potiphar is interested in Joseph, and he says, no, that wouldn't be right. And this answer does not satisfy her, and so she keeps expressing her interest in him. In scene 3, one day, nobody else is around. Mrs. Potiphar asks Joseph again. He says no. She takes his coat. He flees outside. Scene 4, she realizes that this could be an issue. People talking and whatnot. Maybe Joseph going to Potiphar. So she calls the servants and says, look, I have been accosted by Joseph, by that foreigner. And then she tells her husband that Joseph raped her, and then Joseph is thrown in prison. And again, he does fairly well as far as being in prison goes. So that's what we looked at last time. Potiphera comes up because eventually Joseph gets out of prison on grounds of his ability to interpret dreams. And he interprets Pharaoh's dream. This is what we read 2 weeks ago. He interprets Pharaoh's dream to mean that there will be 7 years of plenty followed by 7 years of famine. Suggests that Pharaoh appoints somebody to gather food during the years of plenty so that there was food during the years of famine. Pharaoh chooses Joseph, gives him an Egyptian wife named Osnat, and Osnat is described as the daughter of Potiphera, a priest of On. And so the rabbis make a connection, they connect dots, and create a bigger story about Potiphar and Potiphera. So that is where that comes in. Okay, which incidentally, if that connection were to be true, that would mean that Joseph does not end up with Mrs. Potiphar, but he does marry her daughter. So make of that as you will. Okay, then we have a video from Joseph in the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, and we have a Bible Raps scene or song about Joseph, including 20 seconds about Mrs. Potiphar. And here we have a screenshot from the movie Joseph, King of Dreams, which is the prequel to Moses, Prince of Egypt. Then we have Ancient Parallels, and that takes us through Mrs. Potiphar. So now we're going to move on to Delilah because I want to make sure that we have time to get through tonight's stories. All right, Gabriel, would you please read scene 1?
Sure. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, just checking. After that, he fell in love with a woman in the Wadi Sorek named Delilah. The lords of the Philistines went up to her and said, "Coax him and find out what makes him so strong and how we can overpower him. Tie him up and make him helpless, and we'll each give you 1,100 shekels of silver." So Delilah said to Samson, "Tell me what makes you so strong, and how could you be tied up and made helpless?" Samson replied, "If I were to be tied with 7 fresh tendons that had not been dried for use as bowstrings, I should become as weak as an ordinary man." So the lords of the Philistines brought up to her 7 fresh tendons that had not been dried. She bound him with them while an ambush was waiting in her room. Then she called out to him, "Samson, the Philistines are upon you." Whereupon he pulled the tendons apart as a strand of tow comes apart at the touch of fire. So the secret of his strength remained unknown.
Thank you. All right, and then some context, please.
Sure. Context. This is from the biblical book of Judges. Samson had never had a haircut and as a result was very strong. He used his strength to try to free the Israelites from the Philistines. At the same time, his weakness was Philistine women. He had a Philistine wife, but when he left to visit his parents, she got married to one of his best men from the wedding. When the text says after that, it refers to when he slept with a Philistine prostitute and almost got trapped by the Philistine men. Note that Samson's Hebrew name, Shimshon, is related to the Hebrew word son, Shemesh, while Delilah's Hebrew name, Delilah, is related to the Hebrew word night, Lila. Should I continue with the second?
Yes, please.
Okay. It is interesting that Delilah is a free agent. No male, father, husband, brother, son is making a decision for her, either materially or financially. Being on her own may or may not have affected her interest in financial security. The amount of money that Delilah was offered was huge for those times. 1 shekel paid for a sheep, and multiple people, possibly the kings of the 5 Philistine cities, were each offering her 1,100 shekels. Joseph was sold as a slave by his brothers for only 20 shekels. While it is often assumed that Delilah uses her body to coax Samson, every other use of that verb, Psalms 78:36, Hosea 2:16, and 1 Kings 22:20-23 means entice through words. As shall become apparent, Delilah's words are all that she uses. You can scroll down a little bit.
Yeah.
Thank you. The question is, the first one, we know that Samson loves Delilah. How do you think Delilah feels about Samson?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have to work with. How might Delilah feel about Samson? And you can make a midrash. You can make up a version. You can make up a story, as long as it doesn't contradict anything that's in the text.
I would say, based on the simple text, that she doesn't really care about him. She's just
Right.
trying to get a financial gain from him.
Yeah, right. Because it says nothing in the text about how she feels about him.
She probably thinks he's foolish to keep coming back to her after she does the things she does to him, if you will.
David, can you scroll to the section about Samson went on a trip and his wife got married to somebody else?
Yeah.
Is there more to the story than that?
Yeah.
Did they get divorced? Or did she just say, I'm going to take advantage of the situation and get married to this other guy?
Seems like that.
There is a little bit more to the story. And
Is it
I'm also
relevant?
having a little bit of internet issues, so if I disappear, I'll come back. So it's actually a parallel story to the one we have now. On the way to his wedding, Samson finds a lion that had died, and there was a beehive in the carcass of the lion, and he eats some honey from it, and then he goes on to the wedding. And at the wedding reception, he gives a joke, or like a riddle, and says something to the effect of, out of the hunter came something to eat, out of the mighty came something sweet, something approximately like that. And the 30 groomsmen say, oh, we'll find it for you. We can figure that out, and when we do, you owe us 30 articles of clothing, and if not, then we'll give you our clothing. And they can't get it, so they tell his wife, find out what it is, or we will hurt your family. And so she nags him. It's like, if you don't love me, or you tell me the answer. And eventually he is so tired of her nudging that he tells her the answer, and then she tells that to the guys, and then they give Samson the answer, and he says something. The first part I remember, the second part I don't exactly remember, but I can paraphrase. if you, okay, now I have to paraphrase both of them because I just forgot. But something to the effect of like, if you had not plowed with my heifer, you would not have guessed my riddle. So he gets upset, takes the jawbone of a donkey, kills 30 Philistines, and says, okay, here's your clothes that I promised you. I'm going home to visit my parents now and cool off. He leaves. His wife's father marries her to one of the best men. Samson cools off. He comes back and wants to see his wife, and her father said, I'm sorry, she's married again. And Samson's really upset about this. So he takes foxes, ties a torch to their tails, and sets them loose in the Philistine fields. And the Philistines are upset about this, and so they take his wife and her father and they burn them to death. That is that story.
Jeez.
Okay,
Wow.
but the important thing is the way that you wrote it, it sounded like the wife who was married to Samson said, oh, I'm going to get married to this other guy, but it was her father who made it happen.
That is a fair point, and I will amend the source sheet.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for the reminder of the rest of the story. I do remember learning it, but forgot it.
I thought a woman couldn't marry a second man until her husband divorced her or until he died.
Only if you're Jewish.
Well, and did they consummate did they consummate the marriage? I can't remember. Because I know all this happened on the wedding night, right? Didn't it? Or did it happen over time? Yeah.
So
I think Samson was really into beautiful women. And I mean, he definitely didn't stick with Jewish women. I mean, you know, they were Philistine women. But I remember at the beginning of the story, when his parents said, why are you going to marry this Philistine woman? And he said, because she looks good to me. Or at least that was the translation that I was reading.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think he was kind of a sucker for beautiful women. Seriously, you know, I think he was a sucker for beautiful women.
That's fair.
Point in question.
Yeah. Question. Go for it.
The point first is, I thought Shimshon's parents are the subject of a prior story, and that's part of a Haftorah. That is a Haftorah about an angel visiting his mom in the field. And when an angel visits his mom when his father's in the field, and the angel tells her that God is going to visit them. God is going to bestow on them a child, and that the child has to be a Nazir. No wine, no hair, no blade to his hair, no wine, and then the father is incredulous. He doesn't believe it. Or I mean, he's wondering and he's doubting. It's not that he doesn't believe his wife, but he's having a hard time wrapping his head around it. And so the man comes, the angel in the shape of a man comes back again, and he tells the woman the same thing, and she tells the husband again, and the husband, Shimshon's dad, her husband, finds out that, yeah, it's true, this is it. And the husband asks the angel, you know, what do we have to do? And he says, you have to make this kid a Nazir, in by description. So I'm watering down the story, but that's how that goes. So Shimshon from before birth, almost, Shimshon is destined to be a Nazir. And yet here he is womanizing, and I find that to be a character flaw in his story. Because it doesn't seem like from the parents' story, you wouldn't think of it as having that way. Being a Nazir and avoiding wine is for the purpose of avoiding sin, downplaying the, getting drunk and committing sin and whatnot. So, and here he is, he's enthralled by Delilah. She seduced him. So I think this is pretty much Delilah and the Philistines who play on his weakness and lead him astray as a context.
Yep, that is fair. So I just checked in the Book of Numbers. It does not say that an Nazir married. I will check if Samson drank wine at these wedding celebrations or not, or if it's tell us. It would still be considered a character flaw to fly off the end. Can you hear me?
Can hear you.
You broke up. I could hear you, but you broke up a little on my end anyway.
Yeah.
I just Googled it. Nazir can get married. You can't get a haircut or drink wine.
Okay.
I think David had computer problems, but he'll be back. There he is. You're muted, David.
You're muted, David.
Thank you. All right, as I was saying, while I try to get this sheet back up, it's not impossible for Nazirites to marry. That's not against the rule. Fine, that's both true for Samson in particular. I will check to see if the text tells us that Samson drank at any of his wedding celebrations. But there we are with that. All right. Other thoughts about how Delilah might have felt about Samson? See if I can bring back the text. All right, here we go. And if not, I will bring up the second question, which is, what is motivating Delilah here?
Money. They offered her a lot of money.
And fear, both, right? We heard that they threatened her too, right?
No, they threatened they did not threaten her. They threatened the woman that was Samson's first wife.
Oh, okay. Thought it was Delilah or her father.
See, this is the first time we meet Delilah. You are seeing everything we have about her.
Okay.
Perhaps Delilah is doing this because she knows that maybe the relationship that she has with Samson isn't able to become anything more. Perhaps she's aware that since Samson is a Nazarite, I would assume maybe she knows this because Samson looks different. I mean, he can't cut his hair. I would assume that would be unusual for other like Israelites, other Jews at the time. So maybe that is a distinct thing. And so she already knows that Samson is sort of held to a little bit of a higher standard anyway. So maybe she has a sense that their relationship is temporary, and perhaps out of spite, out of the fact that it can't be anything more, she does this. Maybe I just invented a midrash there, but that could maybe be part of the kind of. No, I didn't invent that.
No, you did just invent the world's newest midrash. Mazel tov, well done. And your midrash stands whether or not she knows, or whether or not she thinks that Samson is a Nazarite. That is certainly one way of coloring it. And even if she just senses this is a relationship that's not going anywhere, and I'm ticked about that, I'm now going to like engage in shady dealings with my boyfriend for money.
Yeah.
Like that is a generalizable midrash that I think there are potentially people in the world who could relate to that.
Yeah, because that's, I don't know, that's maybe one, that's at least the way that I thought about it from like her perspective. So maybe that's what she's thinking.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go on to scene 2. All right. Barry, would you read this, please?
We're at number 10?
Yes.
Okay. Then Delilah said to Shimshon, "Oh, you deceived me. You lied to me. Do tell me how you could be tied up." He said, "If I were to be bound with new ropes that had never been used, I would become as weak as an ordinary man." So Delilah took new ropes and bound him with them while an ambush was waiting in a room. And she cried, "Shimshon, the Philistines are upon you." But he tore them off his arms like a thread. Then Delilah said to Shimshon, "You have been deceiving me all along. You have been lying to me. Tell me how you could be tied up." He answered her, If you weave 7 locks of my head into the web," the Septuagint adds pin it with a peg to the wall. Pin his locks to the wall. "I shall become as weak as an ordinary man." So Delilah put him to sleep and wove the 7 locks of his head into the web. And she pinned it with a peg, Septuagint adds, to the wall, and cried to him, "Shimshon, the Philistines are upon you." Awaking from his sleep, he pulled out the peg, the loom, and the web. Then she said to him, How can you say you love me when you don't confide in me? This makes 3 times that you've deceived me and haven't told me what makes you so strong. Context.
Okay.
Or am I supposed to do context?
Please. Yes.
Okay. This is the next part of the story. Note that Delilah does not deceive Shimshon, though she doesn't tell him the full story. Some people would say that's a lie. and he's not, and he's not asleep he's not asleep the first and second time that she does what he says will work. How might Delilah be feeling at the end of this section of the text?
Thank you.
I can't be okay. Welcome.
How might Delilah be feeling at the end of this section of the text?
Strung along. Oh, was I supposed to answer? Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, so you and anybody else.
She'd feel like the girls of today would feel, that he was stringing her along. Instead of saying, I can't tell you, it's confidential, it's none of your business, he gives her a false story. She'd feel strung out.
Thank you. Other thoughts?
She feels like being cheated out of all the money she was promised for getting the secret.
Hmm.
No.
What I don't understand is that if she's trying to find out what his weakness is, and he's telling her, these examples, then why is she telling him, Samson, the Philistines are upon you? Like, why is she warning him? So she might have some feelings for him, maybe.
To see if it really works out, to see if he's tied up or if he's weak.
To see if she did a good job tying him up.
Yeah, to see if what he told her is true. It's her way of testing him. Hey, the enemy's on you, and then he's got to make a move if he can, or if he's too weak, he can't. She'll find out right away, and so will the Philistines, and they do.
It could go either way, Zoya. It could be that she has feelings, or it could be that she's just testing him, or there could be other answers. Joseph, go on.
I think she might feel that she kind of wearing him down because he's not brushing her off, but he keeps telling her something, So I think that she might feel that she's kind of, wearing him down a little bit, because she asks him every time and he keeps telling her something. So, and he's not just saying he don't want to talk about it or just brush off.
Maybe he enjoys
Good point,
just riddles as he did with the other folks at the wedding with these. So tell me, here's a riddle, solve it. What does this mean? And he maybe enjoys teasing Delilah as well. Oh.
David, is she the reason that people have come up with this thought about never trust a woman?
She is an example.
Yeah.
There may be others.
And before her.
She may be one of the first.
I doubt it.
Well, but things like that happen. I just remember we're talking about my time in Costa Rica, and we won a bid for a pretty big job, but it wasn't officially signed up. And the friend of my partner was also bidding, and afterwards he says, "Oh, you already won." We were sitting around and talking, and he was having some drinks, and my partner says, "Oh no, it was he sort of gave his friend and our competitor the, more or less what our pricing structure was. What does this guy do? He goes to the owner who was put out the bid for this and had a talk with him, and he said, well, I know I can do this the same price as these guys have. Why do you want to put all your eggs in one basket? So we lost 50% of the project. So what? It's like Delilah, is fiddling around to say, hey, tell me your secret. And Samson he was smart enough in the beginning, clearly not to tell her what his pricing structure was. So my partner, he didn't think twice about it. And of course, there was money involved. Our competitor got money. Same thing with Athaliah. She wanted money. That was more important than the friendship, or if there was any sincere relationship or any type of relationship with Samson. A feeling of some sort of affection or just enjoying his company, if nothing else. But the money was more important to her.
Money corrupts, Charles. Good point.
She was determined, though. She didn't give up. she kept coming back and trying again.
Not precise. Money.
Well, Shimshon kept coming back too, evidently.
All right. So what are Delilah's options at the end of this section?
She could just give up.
Yeah, or come clean. Hey, Samson, you're killing me. I could be getting money. You're killing me.
All right. Well, let's see what happens next. Ben, are you available to read?
Sure.
Great.
Where should I start from?
The little 16, if you see it on your screen.
Yes. Finally, after she nagged him and pressed him constantly, he was wearied to death, and he confided everything to her. He said to her, "No razor has ever touched my head, for I have been a Nazarite to God since I was in my mother's womb. If my hair were cut, my strength would leave me, and I shall become weak as an ordinary man." Sensing that he had confided everything to her, Delilah sent for the lords of the Philistines with the message, "Come up once more, for he has confided everything to me." And the lords of the Philistines came up and brought the money with them. She lulled him to sleep on her lap. Then she called in someone else, and she had him cut off the 7 locks of his head. Thus she weakened him and made him helpless. His strength slipped away from him. She cried, "Samson, the Philistines are upon you." And he awoke from his sleep, thinking he would break loose and shake himself free as he had done the other times. For he did not know that God had departed from him. The Philistines seized him and gouged out his eyes. They brought him down to Gaza and shackled him in bronze fetters, and he became a mill slave in the prison.
What's changed in the thousands of years?
All right,
Context.
go on. Context, yes, please.
Yeah, this
Eye-gouging.
the next part of the story, some see a connection between the mentioned Samson's mother and him falling asleep in Delilah's lap as being symbolic of Samson becoming childlike without his strength. Others see the cutting of his hair as taming his wild nature, and in fairness, these are not mutually exclusive interpretations. Do you think Delilah felt bad at all about what she was doing to Samson? Does not immediately appear so, no.
Thank you.
It's
Anybody else want to?
That's a terrible story.
Why it's here.
You know, I don't know if this is true or not, but my impression of Delilah for a long period of time has been she's one of those women, you know, there are women out there who they're just kept, you know, and I mean, it's not like they dislike the person who's keeping them, so to speak, but it's a financial bargain for them. They are looking to, you know, it's I think you know the type of women I'm talking about, you know, that sort of thing. And so, I mean, she likes him and that sort of thing, but she gets something from the relationship with him. I don't know what specifically, because it's not like, I don't know if he's keeping her or not keeping her, but, you know, it seems to me it's not that big of a deal for her to do this to him and, you know, to hand him over. And, she, you know, she's just like next, you know, that sort of thing. She, you know, and she's probably got, she may, I don't know if she does or not, but she is either going to get another boyfriend pretty quickly and easily, or else she's got other ones already. So, that's always been my impression of her. And it's not based on anything except the life, people you meet in life. And I kind of see people in the Bible being just human like everybody else, what does this situation remind me of? So that's the impression I have. So I don't know that she felt badly about it, because I just don't get the impression she felt badly about it at all. I think, I think, and also part of it was he was pretty renowned, wasn't he, David?
Yeah.
With all the stuff that he had done.
Oh yeah.
And people were afraid of him in Philistine. So the Philistines were afraid of him. So I think, there may have been part of doing this as for her people,
With all that money she's going to get, she could easily get another boyfriend.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I think if she would have just done one attempt, she might have felt a little bad, but 3 or 4 attempts, by that time, she's committed to her cause. And I don't think she'd have any regrets.
We'll
That makes
never
sense.
know. We'll never know. I think she drops off of the story at this point. I don't think we hear about her again.
No.
No,
Jessamine
meaning
the
we
Mill
don't
put her in the temple at the end of the story, and she was killed along with Samson.
Yeah, well, which book of Tanakh is that from?
All right. I don't think that I don't know if we could make the last part of this source sheet take an entire class period. So I am going to give you the story, the third story in the source sheet. And then if we have time, we'll discuss it. But here is a Bim Bum video, and here's the Grateful Dead singing about Samson and Delilah. You can watch this later. There's a connection between Delilah and Yael. Here's the historical evidence. And now we get onto Athaliah. So Athaliah is the daughter of King Ahab and Queen Jezebel in the northern kingdom of Israel. We're now in the book of Kings. And her mother, Queen Jezebel, is an idol worshiper. She's into Baal. In order to have a political alliance between the northern kingdom of Israel and the southern kingdom of Judah, Athaliah, who is a princess from the northern kingdom, gets married to the prince of the southern kingdom, Ahaziah. So there is a coup. One of the army generals, Jehu, kills both the king of the northern kingdom of Israel and Ahaziah, who is the king of the southern kingdom of Israel, of Judah. And so
David, this says Ahaziah, this says Athaliah is mother of Ahaziah.
Correct. Oh, sorry.
Okay.
No,
I thought you said
right.
she married him. Yeah.
Touche, you are correct.
Okay. Thanks.
She marries Joram, I believe.
Yeah, you're right.
And then their kid is Ahaziah, who becomes the king. So she is the queen mother at this point. Then Athaliah decides that she is going to kill all the contenders for the throne, except she misses one of her grandkids, Joash, who is hidden by his aunt, who is married to the high priest. And so for 6 years, this kid is hidden in the temple, and Athaliah is in charge. Then, when the kid seems to be old enough, the high priest, Jehoiada, calls for those who might be loyal to the old king and potentially the hidden future king, and has them plan a coup. And so they all get ready. That's scene 2. And then in scene 3, the kid is brought out. The high priest proclaims that he is now the king. All the people say, "Hooray, long live the king." Athaliah hears the commotion, comes to see what's going on. She says, "Treason, treason." The high priest gives the command that she should be killed, but not in the temple. So they take her out. She gets killed. And then Jehoiada gets everybody back on board with worshiping God and not Baal, and with following the king who is from the line of King David, which is where the southern kings of Judah descended from. And then afterwards, everybody goes to the temple of Baal and they smash it, and then everybody is happy except for Athaliah because she's dead. The end.
Wow. Reader's Digest.
Yes.
I gotta tell you, years and years and years ago when I, Claudius was first done, that series, I don't know if anybody's seen it, but I saw it on WTTW. I was, apparently that was really common among pagans in that era, because I know Claudius was full of queens killing relatives and their own children and stuff like that, all for the grab of power. So I just think it was, kind of common back in the day to do that.
Everybody's doing it.
I mean, it's animalistic. I mean, it was shocking when I saw Claudius, but I think it was kind of common.
It might be worth just pointing out that there's a lot more slaughter in this story coming up to this part, which I had not really read through before, but you induced me really. And there's a lot of slaughter purportedly at the order of the Lord, a massive slaughter of the house of Ahab and
yes,
of other people. And of course, whether this happened or not, it was a good, this is the Bronze Age, well before Claudius.
Yes, that's true. If we're talking the Northern Kingdom, where, see if I can find a date for this, but we're looking at least the 800s BCE. And
yeah, that would be about it.
And all the Roman emperors were in the CEs. Yeah, no, the Bible is not a children's book.
No, not all the Roman emperors were in CE. They were in BCE.
That's possible.
No, because Julius Caesar was like 167 to
Correct, yeah.
something, or 72 BCE or something like that, up to
Diane,
Talking about Caesar
you make
Augustus.
a point. They straddle the line between CE and BCE. There was some early and some later.
Sure. Final points, things that are in here, you can read about them later. There is a play about this written in the 1600s by Jean Racine. There's an oratorio in English, I believe, that you can watch if you have a good hour or two. And if you can zoom in, here's some reading material that tells about it from the Historical Atlas of the Bible. Possible reasons for the massacre from reading the Women of the Bible. And then we have an appendix going back to Mrs. Potiphar. You can read about the story. She gets a name here, Zoyaka. It's a long, very interesting story. Delilah in the Talmud. You can see what they had to say about her. And other midrashim about Mrs. Potiphar. And then Mrs. Potiphar versus Tamar. And then the story of Athaliah is found both in 2 Kings and 2 Chronicles. So you can see the other version of it here. Mrs. Potiphar versus the Book of Proverbs, Delilah versus the Book of Proverbs. So lots of options for you to peruse later. I'm going to stop the share and stop the recording.